Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to share this work with you. My name is Bernardo Soares. I am a PhD candidate on Urbanism at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I present this paper as part of an investigation on counter-hegemonic forms of urbanization. In the relations of production of space, it recognizes the planetary urbanization as enclosed by a range of contradictions in order to become a variety of conflicts. Although by means of dialectics, we can also observe attempts of resistance composed by principles of social participation, and, in its turn, the insurgency of social forces composed by popular, emancipatory, and collective movements on the construction of cities, finally recognizing the notion of common. Taking the Marxist approach on primitive accumulation on planetary urbanization, we understand a series of interventions by forces both from the state and the market, such as urban renewal, gentrification, and removal process that fall upon especially on the informal settlements and favelas. Among most important contradictions of globalization regarding cities is the production of urban informality. The urban population on the informal settlements in developing countries presents an alarming picture. The informal population presents absolute growth. As a characteristic phenomenon of cities in the global south, favelas constantly face those threats from both the state and the market. By the same time, as a growing trend in the planetary urbanization, it is constantly sought as a way to access land and housing. In this tendency, what alternative do we have for the informal settlements, especially the favelas of the global south? New alternatives urge to be thought and put into practice. As an empirical object, we take the model of the favela community land trust, and its possible contribution against actions of dispossession, gentrification, and removal, and on guaranteeing land ownership, triggering new methods of language and participatory design for the urbanization of favelas. Originated from civil rights movements for community stewardships of land in the United States, the Community Land Trust has been multiplying since the 1970s and around the world. Nowadays, it is primarily used to ensure housing affordability. The CLT basically consists on separation between the land and the housing buildings on its boundary. Thus, the land is subjected to the collective control and ownership of the CLT, while the house is under the possession of the residents. But then we have a question. Is it possible to be adopted in the cases of informal settlements and favelas? We must consider the socio-economic differences between all those regional and global contexts. So the favela CLT is an attempt for providing secure hold on the land and housing in the cases of the informal settlements. By separating the land from the edification and the property between them, it is based on these elements: collective property on the land, individual property on houses, perpetual affordability, and community control. And it has been developed in 3 sample communities in Rio de Janeiro. In one, called Trapcheiros, we have done some work on discussion among local leaders and residents, their principles above land and its title of property, basic needs, and local potentialities against threats of gentrification and removal. The entire social organization demanded by the implementation of the FCLT has also been reflected in a great effort of social territorial organization of Trapcheiros, among local problems and needs that seek to be translated into imagery representations of a new place, created by residents themselves and by technical advisory. But there is our theoretical and conceptual question, which is, well, it leads us to recognize that from its contradictions and conflicts, also dialectically, arise new forms of social participation between ethical functions of architecture and urbanism. An urban common might emerge as a new paradigm based on democratization, collectivization, and associativism, and it can be found in cases when land is produced by value in use, in the forms of autogestionate and autoconstructive experiences of housing. These autonomous elements can mean an alternative form of social properties, which paves the way for a process of decommodification of land and housing, by democratic management over territory, independence from the state and resistance to the market, and transforming land into a collective property under non-profit management. Finally, we consider urban commons as a form of resistance to the planetary urban crisis, overcoming forms of appropriation of space through new methods of social production of land and housing based on the principles of autonomy, autogestion, and participation. In this regard, I would like to leave you with a couple of questions. How can architecture and urbanism contribute to this struggle? And what kind of language and design may we produce? Thank you.